Okay, Koopa, where did you go?
Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special Love Stories edition of Genre hosted by SAC, Storytelling Association of California. We are so delighted to have you all here today. I'm a board member and I'm happy to be introducing our seven very talented storytellers from all over California. I recently learned that there are over 200
Yeah.
languages spoken in California out of 6,500 world languages. It got me thinking, there must be so much love all around the world. The emotions and nuances of love expressed in so many different languages. Well, today, how are our tellers going to interpret love? Well, let's sit back, enjoy our favorite beverage, and take in their unique, personal, and fictional stories of love. Our first storyteller is Marilyn McPhee, coming from sunny San Diego. Marilyn has been a professional storyteller since 1985, performing at schools, libraries, museums, corporate and private events, and festivals around the country and beyond. She is an active member of NS. To me is that she has 24 grandchildren. How wonderful is that? I'm sure that there is a lot of lively love in her family. And when I asked her for her favorite quote about love, she recalled a poem that her father had sent to her mother when they were courting, along with a dozen roses. These two young people had grown up in poor families, and their love poem had a lot of financial metaphors. So here goes the quote. So credit these roses to my account on account of I love you. How, how great is that? It's a family treasure. Now, Marilyn, please spin your magic with a Russian legend from medieval times.
Yes, this is a favorite story of mine. It starts with Prince Vladimir of Kiev. He was a strong man. He was a rich man. He was a powerful man. And he was a man who loved to give a good party. And when our story opens, that's what he's doing. He's giving a party. And you can imagine it. It's medieval times, before the medieval times, long banquet table. It was just for guys. So guys were seated on both sides of the table. They were gnawing on turkey legs, throwing the bones over their shoulders. There was a lot of guffawing, a lot of backslapping, a lot of high fives, and a lot of what guys do best. Starts with a B. No, don't say belching, although I'm sure they were doing that too. Bragging, boasting and bragging. Everyone talking about all of the things that he could do, all of his strength, physical and otherwise, his conquests, military and otherwise, his assets, financial and otherwise. Olympic style bragging, going for the gold. Now, there was a technique to it, though. You wanted your brag to be to top the last guy's, but not to top Prince Vladimir's, because it was his castle, it was his party, and he was known to have a really nasty temper. So everybody was bragging away, everybody except Stavr Gudinovich, who was seated down at the far end of the table next to his friend Pavel. And Stavr was strumming dejectedly on a guzla. You may be wondering what a guzla is. So just think of a Ukrainian ukulele. Well, actually more like a balalaika, but I think Ukrainian ukulele has a good sound to it. Pavel said to him, so what's up, Stavr? You seem kind of down. He said, well, what's the point? You know that I could make a lot of boasts. You know I could, Pavel. But Princess Vladimir is calling all the shots here, so it seems pointless. Why, if I wanted to, I could say that I'm twice as rich as the prince himself. What? Yeah, I'm twice as rich as the prince because I have a valiant wife. Sometimes when you're at a party and it's just so noisy you can hardly hear yourself think, and then suddenly, inexplicably, it's just silent for a second. And anybody who says anything, that little phrase just hangs in the air for everyone to hear, usually when you've said something personal or something really stupid. Well, this was one of those moments. And the phrase that hung in the air was, I am twice as rich as the prince himself. Everyone gasped. And then to make sure that the prince heard it, they passed the message along both sides of the table, mouth to ear, mouth to ear, mouth to ear, till it reached Prince Vladimir's ears. Well, he leapt to his feet. He pounded on the table. His face was beet red, and he said, who is it who claims to be twice as rich as I? Guard, seize that saucy varlet by his white hands and put him in the dungeon and pile up a lot of sand in front of the door so he can't escape. A guzla player, is he? Well, he'll soon be singing a different tune. And only moments later, Stavro Gudnovich found himself in the dungeon, listening to the sand being piled up in front of his door and thinking, you know what he was thinking, me and my big mouth. Then he heard a voice. It was his friend Pavel calling to him from a small window high up on the wall. Stavro, what can I do for you? How can I help? Oh, I don't know, Pavel. I could die in this dungeon. So if you could, ride to my castle and talk to Vasilisa. Tell her to raise the money to ransom me out of here. Tell her to sell the tapestries or the rugs, the art, the jewels, the castle, the land, her hair, my pocket watch. No, that's a different story. But tell her to sell whatever she has to ransom me out of here. I will, friend. Good luck to you. And Pavel left. Well, meanwhile, back at Stavro Gudnovich's castle the next morning, Vasilisa was not in a good mood. Her husband had gone off the night before for an evening with the guys, and he wasn't back. And surely he knew that she had a long honey-do list for him, chores that needed to be done. When she saw Pavel riding up without Stavro, she thought the worst and was very relieved to find out that he wasn't actually hurt. Well, maybe just his pride. Pavel delivered his message, and then he was gone, leaving Vasilisa to think about what she was going to do. This is not going to work, she thought to herself. Well, what's to prevent the prince from taking the money and not releasing Stavro? In fact, for that matter, what's to prevent the prince from taking the money and the castle and me and still not releasing Stavro? Now I've got to think of something else. So she thought all that night, and then she called the next morning on her chief advisor, her hairdresser, Jose. She said, cut it all off. And he told her that it wasn't exactly the hot new look for spring, but she insisted. And so moments later, with her hair shorn and dressed in the clothes of a Tatar warrior, Vasilisa was riding away from the castle, along with a dozen of her best men, well, women similarly attired. They hadn't gone far before they ran into some of Prince Vladimir's troops. Vasilisa tried to make her voice as deep as possible. She said, who are you and where are you bound? And the leader of the prince's troops said, we have orders from Prince Vladimir to surprise the castle of Stavro Gudnovich and to take his wife Vasilisa prisoner. She said, oh, well, then you are out of luck. We have just come from there. The castle is deserted and the woman you seek is gone. Oh, the prince isn't going to like hearing that, they said. Well, as long as you are giving him messages, tell him this. Tell him that we are emissaries of the great Tartar Khan, and we have been sent to demand 10 years of back tax tribute money in gold. Tell him that we are just the vanguard company, and there is a force of 30,000 troops poised at the border, ready to attack if we don't get the gold. Great and bloodthirsty Tartar Khan, 10 years of tribute money? They couldn't turn their horses around fast enough. Vasilisa took her time, and when she arrived at Prince Vladimir's castle, she was pleased to see that she was expected. The prince himself came out to greet her. He was surprised. He said, oh, I hadn't thought that the great Tartar Khan would send one so young. Never mind, my youth, just show me the money. Of course, in time, but I'm sure that you and your men are tired. You could use some food and some entertainment, could you not? Of course, she said, we will accept your hospitality. So they came into the castle, and a banquet had been hastily set up. But after the food had been consumed, then the prince stood and he said, and now for some after dinner entertainment, chess, a man's game. I will challenge your best chess player. And Vasilisa said, oh, all of my men are excellent chess players. I myself have played a bit in my green youth. I shall take your challenge myself. So a chessboard was set up, and a dozen moves in, it was check, check, checkmate. And Vasilisa had defeated the prince. A lucky move, she said self-effacingly. Well, yes, but we shall see how you do tomorrow. Why, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow after breakfast? Archery, a man's sport. I shall challenge your best archer. Well, said Vasilisa, all of my men are excellent at archery, but I believe that I will take the challenge myself. So the next morning, the target was set up. It was a brass ring affixed to an oak sapling, and each of them was to shoot 3 arrows. The prince's first arrow went far wide, and the second wasn't much better. But for the third, he took a long time in aiming. And when he shot the arrow, it hit just the edge of that brass ring and slid barely inside. Top that, he said. Vasilisa took 1 arrow, drew the bowstring back and shot, and it hit right in the middle of that brass ring. Nothing but net, well, bark, I guess you'd say. And it hit so hard that it split that sapling in 2. A lucky shot, said the prince. Well, we shall see how you do this afternoon. Why, said Vasilisa, what's this afternoon? He said, well, after lunch, a sport of men and former governors, wrestling. Vasilisa only paused a moment before saying, no, indeed, enough of this foolishness. Just give me the money and we'll be on our way. And now Prince Vladimir seemed to shrink before her very eyes. He said, to tell you the truth, I don't have that much ready cash. I don't know if I could get it anytime soon, but you must help me out here. Isn't there something that I could send with you to the great Tartar Khan? Something that he would like? You've seen my castle. What does he want? What does he fancy? Oh, said Vasilisa, you have seriously underestimated the wealth of the great Tartar Khan. No, anything you have, he has much better. She sang a couple of choruses to that song and then said, tapestries, no. Art, no. Jewels, no. Music, well, no music. That's a thought. The great Tartar Khan does have a weakness for music. Really, what kind of music? We will get it. Classical, jazz, hip hop, whatever. She said, well, actually, his favorite is Guzla, but no sense in mentioning that. I haven't heard a single note of Guzla music since I've been here. Guzla, he said, Guzla? Oh, we have Guzla music. Why, I have a very fine Guzla player in my dungeon, in my castle. I will send for him. And he hissed to one of his servants, get that Guzla player cleaned up and in the throne room ASAP. Down in the dungeon, Stavro Gudinovich heard the sand being scraped away from the door and the heavy oaken door creeping open, and he wondered, was he to be freed or perhaps executed? Rough hands grabbed him and said, we got to get you cleaned up and in the throne room ASAP. Oh, and bring the Guzla. So a few moments later, he was thrust into the throne room and Prince Vladimir said, play, Guzla player, play as if your life depended on it, for indeed it does. Well, eyes on the ground, Stavro began to play the Guzla. Well, said Vladimir, he's good, isn't he? Will that do? Will the Tartar Khan be pleased? Oh, he's good, but what he's playing is so depressing. Doesn't he know any more cheerful tunes? Hearing that voice, that familiar voice, Stavro Gudinovich raised his head and looked into the eyes of his very own wife. And his playing took a decidedly more cheerful tune. Well, she said, that's better. Yes, I'll take him. And you may pray that the great Tartar Khan is appeased. Well, only a few moments later, on fine horses supplied by the prince himself, Stavr and Vasilisa were riding away from Prince Vladimir's castle. And Prince Vladimir, for his part, he sank into the nearest chair, which happened to be a throne. He mopped his brow with relief and said, "Ah, that was lucky. How fortunate I was to have that guzla player. I must be the luckiest man in the world." But riding away across the plains, they laughed and shouted. And once out of sight of the castle, Stavr and Vasilisa embraced. And Stavr Gudnovich said, "Truly, I must be the luckiest man in the world, for I have a valiant wife."
Thank you, Marilyn. That was such a delightful story. And I think we should have an Olympic style bragging contest as well as a Guzla contest. So let's try for that next time. Now, on to our next storyteller, Cynthia Cuddeback. She comes from the Mixed Bag Storytellers. Cynthia was born and bred in the East Bay, so grew up with ocean views all the time. Ah, lucky lady. After getting a physics degree, she sailed halfway around the world on a federal research vessel. Mysterious. She then got a PhD in geophysics, met her husband, and became a storyteller. She has now returned to her hometown to be near her mother and teach high school science. She braids science, education, and storytelling in service of environmental stewardship and sometimes in service of love. Well, her quote is, "There may not be one person for everyone, but there's one for me, and I am very grateful." We are grateful to have you here, so please tell us your story.
Last September, my husband and I sat down for dinner in a nice restaurant in Newport, Oregon, overlooking the river. And as I looked across the water, I realized that on a long pier across the river, there were two ships that I recognized. On the left was the Rainier, a NOAA research vessel. On the right was the Thomas G. Thompson, a vessel, also a research vessel that sails out of University of Washington. And these particular ships, out of all the ships in the world, if I had sailed as intended on either of those ships, I would not have been in that room that night. My life would have unfolded very differently. The story starts 35 years ago, the same year Marilyn went pro. Well, at that time, I was just coming out of Berkeley with a physics degree, and I joined the NOAA Corps of Commissioned Officers. These are federally commissioned officers who drive research vessels. So you should picture me in a spiffy Navy uniform with a crisp white hat, and I'm giving orders. Right, 15 degrees rudder, all ahead half, steady as you go. Of course, if you were following that, you would have realized I just told the ship to drive in circles, which is part of the reason I am no longer a ship operator. When I was first commissioned with the NOAA Corps, I was going to go and sail on the Rainier, that ship that I saw. It sailed out of Seattle and was heading up to icebound Arctic and around Alaska to do nautical charting work. But while I was in officer training, I received a letter. "Dear Ensign Cuddeback, we have noticed that you have a strong scientific background and an interest in oceanographic research. For this reason, we are sending you not to Seattle, but to Miami, where you will be on the NOAA ship Researcher." Seattle, Miami. Whoa, okay, my life just took a turn. Instead of the icebound Arctic, I'm going to sail across the Caribbean and across the Pacific in service of large blue water climate research. Instead of seeing land every 5 minutes, I'm going to see land once every 2 months. I had some very interesting adventures, some of which you may have heard about in the context of my equator crossing and an ill-fated romance, but I survived this. And shortly, at the end of that time, I requested an assignment to Seattle, where I could conduct estuarine research, and I was learning about Puget Sound. Deep water, shallow water, okay, no problem. While in Seattle, I started taking classes at the University of Washington, and the University of Washington specializes in large-scale research. They go out across the ocean on a big ship, the Thomas G. Thompson. And so when I applied to graduate school in Seattle, it seemed obvious. I was already taking classes. I had publications. Of course, they're going to let me. And so I wrote them a letter all about how fascinated I was by climate research and how eager I was to sail on the Thomas G. Thompson. And I received another letter. Dear Ms. Cutterback, thank you, but no thank you. Oh, P.S. You'll be hearing from someone in the geophysics program. I heard from David J., who became my thesis advisor. He was intrigued by the work I had done in shallow water. Okay, now I'm studying shallow water again. That's fine. I'm in graduate school. Graduate school. Taking classes, and there's this really cute guy next to me. And he's got great legs. There came a time after a class when I just sort of asked the room at large, would anybody care to have lunch? And Andrew was the only one who said yes, so we had lunch. But strictly as friends, he was very clear on this. Because we were in the same department, he didn't want to risk having things go badly. So we were just friends. We went to the zoo as friends. We baked apple pies as friends. We took long bike rides among the autumn leaves, the sunlight glowing on our, but strictly as friends. I had to chase that guy for 2 years before he finally caught me. But catch me he did, and married we were, which brings me back to Newport, celebrating our 25th anniversary. A toast, my love, to the ship not taken.
Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing that beautiful love story. You are indeed a brainy physicist with a large romantic heart. God bless you. So now let's move to our next storyteller, Vicky Ness, who comes from Do Tell Story Swap of Santa Rosa. Vicky moved from San Francisco to the North Bay community of Sebastopol. She specializes in creating and telling new folk tales, gentle, slightly magical stories for adults. She has told stories on the radio and created a story showcase for KPFA Community Radio, as well as she teaches improv storytelling from San Francisco's financial district all the way to Chennai, India, my hometown. We need to talk about that. Vicky's favorite quote is, "Love makes your soul crawl out from its hiding place," by Zora Neale Hurston. Well, I can't wait to hear your story about true love afoot on a random Sunday morning.
It was a Sunday morning, and he was in his very favorite chair with his third, maybe fourth, steaming mug of black coffee. And he had his device, and on his device was the New York Times. And he was going through the national sports results and getting a little annoyed. Well, if you leave that guy in the game, you're gonna lose it, okay? And he scrolled down a little farther. Yeah, they got to get rid of that coach. That's what's wrong. Hello, duh. So then he scrolled on over to the main page, which was filled with darkness and despair and destruction. And the cause of all this was stupidity, ignorance, genuine greed. And this made him even angrier. But he kept reading till he got even angrier. And little coals, little embers of anger grew brighter and brighter and brighter. Not content with that, he moved on, scrolled right on over to the editorial columnists, who had a deep dive, each one of them, into the House of Congress. And he read, and he read, and he read, and he got even angrier. And the more angry he got, each one of his opinions, stars of honesty and decency and social justice, rose up out of him and flew up into the heavens, splattering and smattering light against the blackness of human ignorance and stupidity. Each star a brilliant observation, a perfectly legitimate reason why that politician should go to hell. And all these stars, as sharp and brilliant as shattered crystal, shimmering against that darkness, turned into a beautiful constellation of the mighty bull Taurus. And as the bull Taurus, he could see his horns being lowered, and he could see himself pawing at the earth and chasing after certain politicians who shall remain unnamed, and trampling greed and trampling stupidity and trampling hypocrisy. Sitting on the sofa, she sat with her device, Bach on the earbuds, a beautiful bone teacup, china teacup, filled with sencha, little tiny green leaves, Mount Fujiyama, with overtones of verbena, that's it for clarity, and a little chamomile for calm. And it all wafted up and filled her senses with beauty and peace and gentleness. And she held up her cup like a supplicant to a particularly beloved divine being. And Bach lifted her up further. And the farther she rose, she became diffuse until she completely turned into a beautiful white cumulus cloud, puffy, sailing across a blue sky like a Spanish galleon ship. And the rising sun cast watercolor salmon and sky blue on the bottoms and edged the very out parts of the cloud in molten gold. And as a cloud, she was able to look down upon an earth filled with darkness and despair and shower it with compassion from the very depths of her heart. And between these two sat the dog, who had to pee, and nobody was noticing. So he looked at the bull, and he looked at the cloud, and he thought the cloud was his better bet. So he hauled himself up with a grunt, because he wasn't a young dog, and he wasn't a svelte dog, and he waddled over to the sofa, and he heaved himself against the leg like a 50-pound sack of cement. And he waited. And he waited. Nothing happened. And he really had to go pee. He may not be young and he may not be svelte, but he has certain rights. He has a right to go out when he needs to pee. Nothing. Except into the room walked the cat, her tail up in a banner of indifference. Pink-a-pink, 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 ignoring everything in the room except for her beloved cat tree, which she climbed up. Pink, 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 up to the top where there was a patch of sunlight. She sat herself down, and only then did she glance at each being in the room before taking a nap. Well, the poor dog. So he heaved himself up again and he pasted himself smack in front of the sofa, and he issued out his soul-searing whine, the one that starts with something that could tear your heart out and sinks into the very depths of despair. That did it. It dispersed the cloud. And all of a sudden she said, oh, the dog needs to go. How long has it been since we've taken the dog out? Oh, okay, come on. And with that, she got up and she pulled on out to the backyard, followed by a very fat and a very happy dog. But the bull hadn't heard it. The bull was still in the heavens, chasing down those fools who thought they knew more than he did about how to run the country. Yes, indeed. And he was still pawing the celestial earth, and he was blowing out rage, until all of a sudden he heard, there went the most ginormous fur ball onto the carpet. And the kitty looked down, very proud of herself. Oh, big old fur ball. The stars fell from the heavens, and he jumped up and got paper towels and cleaned it all up, mumbling about cats. And the next thing he knew, he's in front of the kitchen sink, washing his hands and staring off listlessly into nothingness. When she came in, she said, it's beautiful outside. We've got to go for a walk. You want to walk around Spring Lake? It's beautiful outside. And he said, yeah, let's do, 4th Street. We'll have lunch on 4th Street. She said, burgers. Yes. And that was enough to set them in their orbits from kitchen table to kitchen sink, from bedroom to bathroom, from lost car keys to found cell phones, until they collided at the door, smiling happy to each other, holding each other's hands, one spirit of joy and adventure. And out the door they went. And who brought these two distinct, separate celestial beings together and planted their feet firmly on this beautiful earth so that they could experience their love all over again? None other than the cat and the dog.
Thank you, Vicky. That was such a lovely journey to the Milky Way and back to Earth. And I really enjoyed it. And here's raising my spicy chai to you and your story. So before we go on, could everyone please open their chat boxes and send in their messages to all the tellers if you haven't already done so? Thank you. Our next storyteller is Camille Miller. She comes from the Story Masters. Camille is a poet, storyteller, and a 2-time district champion Toastmaster. She has shared her engaging stories with audiences at open mic venues, churches, and even detention centers. It has been said that her wacky expressions and quick wit have brought joy to those around her with her infectious humor. She spends her day looking under rocks and climbing over mountains in the endless pursuit of the next great story. And her quote is, "Love is being brave enough to tell someone their zipper is down." And finding love in the 21st century can be harder than it seems, she says. Yes, tell us more, Camille.
He smiled at me from across the street. I smiled back. He was slim, just in uniform, and had a solid build. I tried to be coy as he started toward me, but I can feel my heart beating faster and faster. Now standing before me, I was trembling inside. He looked me in the eyes. His strong hand grasped mine, and then he said, "Here's your mail." I confess that finding true love has been hard for me. When I was a little girl, love came easy. Philip and Camille sitting in the tree. Kissing. Now that I'm older, finding a tree to kiss in is a lot harder. It was Friday night, and I was mindlessly watching TV, and then I saw it. Don't spend your weekends alone. Let us help you find true love. That's it. Online dating. I eagerly enrolled and scrolled through the profiles. There was a smorgasbord of men. There were businessmen, lawmen, firemen, ironmen, and even boogeymen. I scrolled and then I saw Derek, 6'2", with dazzling eyes. He was looking for love and adventure. Click. We decided to meet at a restaurant. Derek was short, very short, which he lied about on his profile. And he was dressed in a red shirt and yellow pants. He looked like a couple of ketchup and mustard packets. All night, he bombarded me with financial questions. So, where do you work? What kind of car do you drive? How many rooms in your house? At the end of the night, he confidently declared, "You're the gal for me." I quickly quipped that I'm not a hot dog and I need more than ketchup and mustard in my life. Well, Derek was one of thousands of profiles. Scroll, scroll. And then I see Brian, rugged beard with broad shoulders. He was looking for friendship that could lead to lasting relationship. Click. We met for coffee. Brian was tall, very tall, and looked just like his profile. I was hopeful he would wink at me between sips and play footsie with me under the table. And Brian, he spent the entire time talking about his mother. On the third date, Brian confessed that he, his brother, and his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids lived with his mother. No, he wasn't paying rent. Yes, she still did his laundry and made his lunch and took care of his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids while he was at work. With Brian, I felt like a side chick, and I am not a polygamist. Back to the drawing board. Scroll, scroll. And then I see Kent. Now, he was an average guy, but there was something about him that made my heart leap, like the current gas prices. He was a widower looking for companionship. Click. We met at a restaurant called Lazy Dog. That should have been my first clue. He ordered the crab legs, broke him, and then he all night. I was serenaded by the sound of suck. To me, it was like nails on a chalkboard. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Weeks later, he called and invited me for a swim at the indoor pool at his gym. Well, I was still single and nothing else to do, so I might as well do it as long as it doesn't involve crab legs. So there I am on the edge of the pool, and Kent comes strutting in. I was blinded by his pale skin. Then, like a dolphin, he dove into the pool, kicking up his feet like a fin. Then I saw it. His feet were as black as midnight in summer. He came up out of the pool and sat beside me. Oh, he smelled like 1 quart of curdled milk, 14 giraffes, 2 skunks, and a case of stale beer. My eyes kept looking at his feet. I couldn't help but think of all of the dirt that he was distributing into the pool. If he wasn't washing his feet, then what else wasn't he washing? I pulled my feet out of the pool and I said, Kent, I don't feel like swimming today. Like a schoolboy, he splashed me and swam off. On his second lap, he broke a hole through the water, put his finger on the side of his nose, and then, like a professional, shot mucus out of his nostril. Like a race car, it slid across the pavement, leaving a skid mark of mucus. I gagged and I gagged and I tried to keep my food down because food is expensive, you know. I like seconds, but not like that. I told Kent, I have some errands to run. I have to go now. I ran out of there like a patient out of an insane asylum. I haven't been back to indoor pools or Kent since. Recently, my bad luck ran out. Of all places, I was in the grocery store. He was dark and handsome. The attraction was as strong as babies to bottles, peas to pods, kisses to lips. As I stared, I thought I heard the words, "Come and get me." And I did. Now, I'm not normally that kind of girl, but passion embraced me like a dog in mating season. We went back to my place, rushed through the door, stumbled onto the couch, and then with lusty hands, I unwrapped the delicacy before me. Anticipation, heavy breathing. I nibbled on one side, and then I nibbled on the other side until the chocolate bar was gone. Click.
Thank you, Camille. That was hilarious and so much fun. Anyway, sorry about all those bad experiences, but I hope you find the perfect one on top of a mountain or under a rock. Good luck. And now on to our next storyteller, Ron Chick, who comes from Inland Valley Storytellers. Ron learned in his 35 years as a special ed teacher that a vivid, relatable story is often the best way to present a new idea to a young mind. He believes that every time you tell a story, you forge a link between you and the audience. As long as the story is told, the links between everyone who hears it and everyone who has started it forms an unbroken chain. Ron will travel to any state at any time to keep the chain unbroken. Well, Ron is going to tell us a story based on ancient Korean legends. So, you have the stage, Ron.
Well, good evening. I heard this from a fellow who called himself Michael Wordsmith. Last name I understand to have been Gaither. I just happened to be working at a Renaissance fair, with my wife, who was a fanatic in that field. And we were right next to where he told this tale several times. He introduced it like this: everyone's heard of transforming love. Everyone wants to hear a story about love between a prince and a princess. But how about one with a beautiful princess and a dragon? Well, let's see how this goes. Rin Ke Pak, one of the sons of His Imperial Highness of the Hidden Realm, Pak Rin Ki, was a shapeshifter. He had many duties in his father's court, of course, but whenever possible, he would go out into the mortal world. For there he found music, and that is what Rin liked best. Oh, he loved the sound of music. He found music in the crashing of the waves. He found music in the rustling of the tree leaves. But he found music amongst people singing. and playing instruments. And so whenever he could, he went out into the world and listened to the birds sing. And sometimes he'd pull a trick. He'd sit there as a fat little pigeon on a branch, not even looking about. And when a hawk would come close, he'd transform himself into an eagle and chase it away. One day he had played a few tricks out into the world, and he was heading back toward his father's court when he heard singing. And as he usually did, he drew closer. And there, in a glade not far from a castle, was a beautiful young lady singing with a beautiful voice. And so he stopped to listen. But after a few more notes of that song, she got up, and a lady near her began to play an instrument, and she began to dance. Oh, she wasn't graceful. She was grace. And as Rin watched her, his heart fell for her. Love with humans was absolutely forbidden. In fact, the penalty for assuming the shape of a human was 10,000 years alone in the dark. And while he was immortal, 10,000 minutes, 10 minutes alone in the dark would be unpleasant. And so he watched. Often he would come back and he would find her and he would think, this is the most beautiful creature that has ever lived on earth. If only I could tell her how wonderful her dancing and singing are, how graceful she is, how beautiful she is. But he could not speak in human speech. But as he was watching her one day, he noticed that she stopped what she was doing and watched a hummingbird dance around. And he thought, oh, she likes hummingbirds. And so he made himself into the most magnificent hummingbird that has ever flown. And he flew around her and he flew up to her and he went, by which he meant, you are grace and beauty, you are talent, you are music, and I have fallen madly in love with you. But the princess, for princess she was, did not speak hummingbird. And so she merely smiled and laughed and then went back to dancing. Rin kept watching. He followed her into the courtyard and saw that she stopped and petted a cat. And he thought, she likes cats. So he made himself to a beautiful silky tomcat and went up and rubbed against her. And she reached down and picked him up, by which he meant, I have fallen madly in love with you. Please let me share your life. But of course, the princess spoke not a cat. And so she petted him and set him down. By now, he was mad with love. He didn't know what to do. He came to her as puppy dog. He came to her as a butterfly. He came to her in every shape he could think of, and none of them could he tell her of her love. He was watching her in despair one day when it hit him. There was one creature in his father's land that could speak to humans. Only one, a dragon. And who doesn't love a dragon? He made himself into a beautiful dragon, with emerald wings and golden paws, and stepped out into the glen where the girl was dancing. But did she say, oh, good morning, fair dragon. Do you have a wish for me? Or, how do you do, wise dragon? No. She took one look at his transformed shape, screamed and ran and fell over the embankment and down into the stream below and broke her beautiful legs. Rin transformed himself into his own shape, invisible to humans, and went down beside her to look at what he had done. She was in agony, and her beautiful long legs, were bent in the wrong places. Oh, what have I done? I have no power here, but perhaps he called upon his father, who of course came and said, what is the problem, my son? This was the most beautiful dancer and musician I have ever seen. I have fallen in love with her, but when I tried to show myself to her, look what has happened. She is but a mere mortal. There is nothing I would want you to do with her. You can't have anything to do with mortals. It's dangerous. Please, Father, can't I try? Is there nothing you can do? I can perhaps do something, but be warned right now, my son. Whatever transformation I bring upon her will also come to you, and you will have to give up your immortality to help this young creature. Rin thought for a moment and thought, this is my fault and I love her. Can you let her see me? Suddenly, above the agonized princess was a very strange face, but the eyes were so full of love and compassion that she wasn't terrified. And he spoke to her and said, I came to you as butterfly. I came to you as cat. I came to you as hummingbird. I've tried and tried and tried to tell you how much I love you. Please, please share my life with me. Hey, and we shall try and heal you. The face was strange, but the voice was kind, and the pain was great. And the princess slowly nodded her head. Lay down beside her, my son, said the emperor. He did. And he took his hands and stroked slowly down her crooked, broken legs, and they straightened. And as they did, his son's legs grew longer and straighter. And then he brought his hand slowly up her leg, and her legs got thinner and thinner and thinner. And when he reached her waist, beautiful white feathers began to appear. He went up her body, down her arms, which lengthened and covered with beautiful white feathers. Then he swept back up to her neck and stretched it out, 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 raising her head and arranging her face. And then he said, it is done. And out of the stream bed rose the first two of the great white cranes. The great white crane mates for life and is known to stand over a fallen mate for days, and is the symbol of undying love throughout all of Asia. And now you know where that legend comes from.
Thank you, Ron. That was such a heartwarming story of transformation. Nothing like a good old-fashioned legend to fill the heart with love, right? So now let's go on to our next storyteller, Ed Lewis, who comes from the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. And Ed is a storytelling groupie attending as many storytelling events as possible. And I can believe that. He is a board member of SAC and the Sacramento Storytellers Guild and one of the Pacific Region liaisons for NSN. Ed is a retired teacher of young children as well as an early childhood education professor, telling stories to children throughout the world. And you know what his other name is in the world of children? Eddie Spaghetti. He has taught storytelling classes for teachers and performed for adults since 1994. And Ed's quote is, "You can find love in so many wonderful and often unexpected ways." Tell us your story, Ed.
Okay, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. If you knew me in my youth, you might say that I was bold and adventurous. If you were one of my good friends, you'd probably say, yeah, he was that, but he was actually a little reckless and maybe just a bit off, a little crazy. Well, this story that I'm going to share with you is a piece of a 2-year adventure that I took backpacking throughout the world after serving my 3 years during the Vietnam War in the military. It was a soul-searching Don Quixote kind of journey. The piece I'm going to share with you takes place in the Canary Islands. And the Canary Islands are 7 islands, almost like the Hawaiian Islands in the Atlantic next to the country of Morocco and Spanish Sahara, which is now Mauritania. A lot of Northern Europeans go there to for their summer vacations, kind of like we might go to Hawaii. I wanted to see if I could really live on my own off the land. So I hiked up into the largest crater in the world on the island of La Palma, and I found a cave, and I lived there for 6 months. The days were fantastic. I would get up in the morning, I'd do yoga. I was reading Eastern philosophy. I was especially interested in Baba Ram Das and Be Here Now, which I tried to be. I could fish in the river down below the cave. I'd go foraging for mushrooms, edible plants, and I met a goat herder who had 23 goats, and he'd let me help him milk the goats, and he'd give me fresh goat cheese and goat milk, which I still love to this day. There was a farmer very close to where I was staying in this cave, and he cultivated crops. He had a banana plantation, and I would help him out. He'd give me bananas, fresh Valencia oranges. I mean, it was a tropical paradise. It's right on the equator. I did this for about 5 months, and on going into the 6th month, I met a backpacker on one of the trails. And he, like me, was soul searching, trying to figure out what was going on with his life. And he had finished 3 years in the military also, and was trying to figure out where he needed to go next. He was, though, a hashish dealer. And he spent a month with me, and he was heading back to northern Morocco to conduct his business, and said, hey, come along with me. I'll take you on an amazing journey. So I followed him. We got in a freighter, went over to Spanish Sahara, the country of Spanish Sahara, which is now Mauritania. And we took a 3-hour cab ride for $10 out into the Sahara Desert, where there were 7 tents set up for truck drivers to get food and fuel. What we did was, waiting for a truck to come by, we paid them $7, and we sat on top of that truck with 14 Berber tribes people, and we spent 3 glorious days going through the Sahara Desert. I mean, it was an amazing experience, something that I have never experienced in my life. The shifting sands, there were camels that roamed everywhere. At night, we'd lay down in the sand because it was so hot during the day. It was about 120 degrees. There was sand in every crevice of your body from the wind that just blew incessantly. One night I woke up and I had a scorpion sitting on my belly. There were many adventures, but we came up to southern Morocco to an oasis. It's an oasis like you would see in a movie. There were Roman baths. There were hot springs. There were banana plantations in the middle of the desert, palm trees. It was just gorgeous. And the Berber tribes people that lived in that area came in to the marketplace on their camels. And they sold their camel goods, camel meat, camel blankets, camel milk. And if you've never had anything like camel, it's actually quite tasty. Well, from there, we continued our journey, and we went up to about 100 kilometers on the coast. And BC, Billy Collins, my buddy here, knew a bunch of people that were hippies from a commune that was up in northern Europe. And they were all spread out around this bay. Well, when we came in, this beautiful, charming, intelligent woman and her 2 girlfriends came up, gave him a big hug, came over, gave me a big hug, said, so good to see you, BC. Who's your friend? Well, he introduced me, and I was struck. I'd been living in a cave for 6 months, and I definitely was struck by her beauty. She took us down to the campsite, helped us set up our camp, and then we went up to the evening feast of fish, couscous. There were people playing congas and drums and guitars. Her and I danced. My heart was just filled with love for this physics professor who had come hitchhiking down through Europe and was on her way to South Africa with her two girlfriends that taught at the college. We had a miraculous 7 days together. The next day, BC and myself and a surfing dude from Australia got up and went down to the bay. And we had a little fire going. We put our oatmeal on there, built a lean-to because it was so hot outside, and put in figs and almonds and dates in that oatmeal. And BC took a half pound of hashish and tore it up and put it in there. And like a fool, I ate along with everybody else. And I can't tell you much about the rest of that day, except there were 3 beautiful Danish women that came down and were trying to talk to us. And I don't have any idea what I said or if I said anything. Well, I woke up about 4 o'clock to somewhat of reality, and I decided to go swimming into the water, but I wasn't really prepared to do that. And immediately the current took me out into the ocean. And this woman, Danica, and her 2 friends saw what had happened. And there was a cliff close by where I was, and they got a rope and threw it down. And I swam and I swam. I mean, I was fighting that current. I didn't think I was going to make it, but I did make it and come up. And she just had the sweetest smile. She hugged me, gave me a kiss. I mean, I just fell deeper in love. For the next 7 days, we camped out on the beach, just telling stories, sharing our lives. She spoke 5 languages. We'd go on hikes into the village. She could communicate with everybody. It was a magical time period. And this was the woman I felt, this is for me. This is what I have to do the rest of my life. But after 7 days, her and her 2 girlfriends said, well, we're heading down to South Africa. We are going on a safari, and I hope we can see you again. They got up and stuck out their thumbs, and within 5 minutes, they were down the road. Now, of course, that broke my heart. But 4 years ago, I went to the town that she taught in southern Denmark. It's the same town that my grandparents were born and my mother's oldest brother was born. And I looked for her at that university, but unfortunately she'd retired 10 years previous to that. But I still have those fond memories, the deep feelings of love. And, you know, I'm still, you know, at 75, I'm still a little bit adventurous, and I've always wanted to go down the Nile River on a raft. So if any of you want to join me, please, let's make a plan together. And you never know, you just might find love on the Nile. Thank you.
Wow, what an adventure, Ed. I thought it was a tall tale, but it looks like it's true.
It's a true story, one of many.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Scorpion didn't get you, otherwise you won't be here to tell the story. Anyway, I do hope you find this lady love. It's never too late, and now the internet will help you. So good luck with that, and keep telling your wonderful stories.
Thank you.
And our next and final storyteller is Kathy Martinez, who comes from Mother Lode Storytellers. And her first experience was at the Fremont, Maine Library, where she heard storytelling for the first time in 1984. Since then, she has immersed in stories. She joined the Bay Bottom Tail Spinners, SAC, and CISA. She has attended over 25 Bay Area storytelling festivals, numerous concerts, has listened to tapes and recordings of all kinds of stories. She told her first story at the Coyote Hills Regional Park in Fremont in '84. And she's been loving storytelling ever since. Her quote is, "Love is a finished sewing or beading project." A lady after my own heart. Please tell us your story.
Hi. My story is called Come, Come in the Spring by Richard Kennedy. Old Hark woke up. He filled his pockets full of cracked corn and he walked out into the cold morning air. He smelled it and he knew that snow was going to be coming soon. But he started scattering the cracked corn around his yard for the birds because he loved birds. His father and mother loved birds. He loved birds since they were children, and he loved birds just as much as they did. He's old now, and he just loves hearing the birds sing. Well, off in the forest comes out this figure. It's a man. He's wearing a bearskin rug coat, and he has this huge, thick book under his arm. He walks up to the cabin and he opens up the book. He runs his finger down it and he goes, "Yep, this is the place." He closes the book and he walks into the yard and walks on the side of the house where he sees Old Hark throwing corn out. And he says, "Good morning." And Old Hark turned around and saw him. He said, "Good morning to you, sir. You look kind of familiar. Do I know you?" And the man said, "Well, I'm Death. You may have seen me around, but now it's time for you to come with me." And he takes out an ink pen and he unscrews the lid, and all he had to do is put a check by his name in the ledger, and that's it. And Old Hark said, "I ain't going. I ain't going." And Death looked at him. He stopped it midair and goes, "What do you mean you're not going? If I put this check on, you're going." "Well, I ain't going. See these birds out here? They depend on me to feed them. Come again in spring. By then I'll be gone and they know they won't be able to get fed. Come again in spring, because if you come now, they'll die of hunger. So I ain't going nowhere." And Death looked at him and said, "Well, it's in the ledger. And if it's in the ledger, it's your time. I don't care what it says in that ledger. I ain't going nowhere." Well, Death said, "It's in the book. This is your time. This is good." And it's in, and our Old Hark said, I ain't going nowhere. I'm not going with you. Not now. Come again in spring." Well, Death looked at it and he said, "Well, do you realize how much paperwork there is in me just to delay a half a day? It's in the book. You're coming now." And Death was getting kind of irritated, and he thought, well, maybe I can like make a tree fall on him or something and get him cut off then. But he checked the book again, and inside the book, it said plain as day, gentle, quiet, and peaceful would be his death. So a tree falling on him won't work. So Death said, "Hey, listen, you're getting way past the age that a normal person, is turned to die. You realize that, and your mind is going, you're getting feeble." And Old Hark said, "Hey, my mind is just fine. Thank you very much. Nothing wrong with my memory." "Oh," said Death, "your mind is good?" "It sure is. Ask me anything you want. I'll give you an answer." "Oh, well, you want a test, huh? Okay, let's see. Tell you what, I'll come back this afternoon. You realize the paperwork I'm going to have to go through to postpone it just until the afternoon, but I'll come around at sunset. And this is the question I want you to answer for me. What did your mother bake for you on your second birthday?" He turned around and walked back into the forest. saying, ha, 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 he's never going to answer that. Well, old Hark said, I can remember a lot of things, but second birthday? And he's casting birdseed out. And he's thinking, how am I going to know that answer? And he went inside his cabin and he made himself a cup of coffee and he was rocking in his chair, thinking, what on earth did my mother bake me for my second birthday? Well, he opened it later on that afternoon. He opened the door to throw out more birdseed to the birds, and the birds were singing and making merry. But there was something odd about their singing this time. He said, what am I? And he heard very distinctly the words plum pudding. Plum pudding. Oh, yeah. Okay. So a few hours later at sunset, here comes Death, practically singing a song. He says, oh, sunset is a wonderful time to go. It's peaceful. The sun is setting. Your life is setting. This is good. He takes out his pen and he's going to mark in the book. He goes, oh, wait a minute. We must follow formalities. What is the answer to my question? What did your mother bake for you on your second birthday? Plum pudding, said old Hark. Death couldn't believe it. How did he know that? Oh, oh, that was pretty good. That was a lucky guess. Lucky guess indeed. So let's just prove to see whether or not your memory is that good. Answer the second question for me. What did your father put in your crib when you were 1 year old? Come back early tomorrow morning, crack of dawn. That's a good time to die, crack of dawn. Yeah, it'll work out just fine. It'll take a lot of red tape for me to change my schedule just for this one thing. But okay, I'll come back at the crack of dawn. You answer my question. And let's see how good your memory is and whether or not you should live. So he turned and walked back into the forest again. Old Hark said, okay, well, it started to snow. And he knew. He went back into his cabin, made himself a cup, and was rocking in his rocking chair again. And he opened the door to feed the birds. Couldn't see anything, but he saw that the snow was falling pretty heavy, and the snow on the roof was coming down a little bit. So he thought, oh, I'll clean it up tomorrow morning. He checked out, and the birds, he couldn't hear anything from the birds. So he went to bed that night, and he was not really good night's sleep, as it were. Well, early in the morning, he woke up again. He took his ladder out to scrape the snow off the roof. And as he's up in the ladder, the birds are singing again. They're making merry. They're having fun. And he could swear they said, buttercups. Buttercups. Okay. Well, no sooner has he thought that or heard the bird say that, here comes Death out of the forest again. And he opens up his book and he's saying, well, okay, I can't check the book yet. Okay. He puts the cap back on his pen. All right. What's the answer to my question? If you got such a big, good memory, tell me. What did your father put in your crib on your first birthday? Well, old Hark just said right as fast as you can be, buttercups. Death was surprised. He was angry. He said, okay. If you think you're so smart, I'll make a wager with you. I'll come back in the spring if you can answer me this question. And if you can't answer it, I'm going to put a check in the book. Old Hark said, well, you just go ahead and answer it. Ask me, what is it? Death said, okay. On the day you were born, the midwife held you up in the sky. And when she did, what did your father say? Old Hark. And with that, he turned around and the Death walked away. Old Hark was what? How am I going to know that? Well, he hoped the birds were able to help him. All day long, he kept listening but the birds were not saying anything. He scraped the snow off the roof. The birds didn't say anything distinctive at all. As he climbed down off the ladder, he got really tired. He got corn and he started spreading it out for the birds, and his back started hurting him. And the birds still didn't say a word. And he went inside and he was so depressed that he didn't want to do anything. He crawled into bed, put the covers up high under his chin. Birds weren't saying anything. Well, here comes death. Next day, walks right into the cabin, and old Hark's in his bed. Okay, your bed's a good place to die. He's taking out his pen. He's gonna check the ledger again. Okay, and he starts talking about how wonderful it is to die in the morning, and that it's gonna be quick. And old Hark wasn't paying any attention to death, what he was saying at all. He was looking out the window. It was closed, and the birds are outside the window on the sill singing, and he knows that they're singing, but he can't hear because the window's closed. Well, death is raining on, and how wonderful, peaceful death and quiet and gentle it's going to be. And old Hark said, "Open the window." What did you say? Let the birds sing. I want to hear them sing. Open the window. Old Death got, no, you can't know that. And he threw the ledger out the window, in flew the birds flying all over the cabin. And Death grabbed himself by the fur coat and threw himself out the window. Old Hark jumped out of bed. He filled his pockets with birdseed and went singing out the door. You see, what happened was the birds didn't know what the father said when old Hark was held up. The window was closed. Old Hark is living in the cabin and sleeping in the same bed he was born in. So the birds couldn't hear what the midwife was saying because the window was closed. And his father said when she held up, "Open the window and let the birds sing." Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy, for that really charming story. It really lifted my spirits, and I want to surround myself with birds. I'm getting all my bird feeders out right away. So this has been such a wonderful evening. Thank you all, but we would like to hear about what you are up to. And so if you could spotlight all the storytellers now. So
Hello.
okay, that's great. So let's go in the order that we started. And if you have any questions please put them down in chat. We can all talk for some time. So Marilyn, what would you like to share? Do you have anything exciting coming up?
Yes, I'm very excited to tell you about our 12th annual Storytelling Festival put on by the Storytellers of San Diego. And this is the first year that we will have it in the beautiful Coronado Library. This is a destination that you will want to put in your ledger. And it's all free. It's all day. It's on Saturday, March the 19th. And there will be workshops and performances. There will be kids. There will be opportunities for open mic, and it is in person. So please join us. You can find out all the information about it on www.storytellersofsandiego.org.
Thank you. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. How about you, Cynthia? What would you like to share?
I'll be telling the story again at my church, but that's not as good a venue. Hoping to tell it at Tail Spinners next week, in which case I'm hoping to tell the whole story instead of dropping the middle out.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll be there rooting for you. Vicky?
I'm just doing some swaps, including tail spinners and mixed bag. And I'm teaching the end of the month, but it's in India, so they're 7:30 at night classes, 6 o'clock in the morning here. So
Is that part of the Chennai Storytelling Festival?
No, it's a different one.
Oh, it's a different one.
Yeah, it's a different workshop. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. And how about you, Camille?
I'm still trying to find a man. No. I don't have anything coming up, but if you want to invite me, that's cool. So that's it.
Sure, we'll do that and wish you good luck in your quest. Let's see, how about Ron?
Well, tomorrow afternoon at 4:30 our time, which is 7:30 their time, I will be telling with the Dartmoor Storytelling Group. You can contact them by contacting Tim Tingle at tim.tingle, TINGLE.com. Sign up, Zoom in, and listen to a bunch of stories. I tell there every third Thursday, and they're a wonderful group. And sometimes they have people Zoom in from as far away as Australia, which of course, time zones are really crazy from mid-Texas but anyway, people Zoom in from all over, so you never know what kind of tales you're going to hear at one of their swaps.
Okay, sounds really great. How about you, Ed? Ed, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I posted in the chat the next concert that our board, the SAC board, is putting on it's the Young Children's Concert. And this is for children ages 3 to 6 and people interested in stories for that age group. It's going to be from 10 to 10:30. We had our kickoff event last month with 2 storytellers, one from the East Coast and Rupa was one of our tellers. And this month we have 2 tellers from the East Coast, and I'm going to be one of the tellers. And we each have 15 minutes. We share stories, songs, movement activities for the younger kids. So it's the young age group. And if any of you are interested in participating in that, if you've got interactive work with young kids, kind of preschool, kindergarten, first grade, get in touch with me. You can go through the SAC board. A lot of you have my email anyway. And you can let me know that you're interested in being one of our performers. We have 2 performers. They each have 15 minutes to work with that young children, and it needs to be very interactive with your stories and movement and all that. So that's our next thing coming up that I'm involved with.
Thank you, Ed. Kathy, do you have a few words?
I'm not doing a damn thing. Our Motherlode Storytelling Guild still has a monthly meeting. We're still trying to hang in there. You know, basically, we do this generic stories. We have several of our tellers, you know, try to let everybody know we're alive and well and we're here. We just haven't been able to do anything organized wise yet.
Are you planning to meet in person?
Well, we were supposed to have a small in-house retreat to bring in new people in January, but no, it just didn't work out. We still had the retreat, but it was on Zoom, so you couldn't hug. You know, I haven't seen these people in 2 years? Going on 2 years. I haven't seen them. I haven't touched them. I haven't hugged them. We talked on Zoom, but you know, that's a lot of, you know, it doesn't make it. I mean, I see a lot of my friends in Zoom here. It's really good seeing you and waving to you, but it's being able to talk to you face to face. I don't know about you, but I like it much better.
Yeah, we all need to hug or at least do namaste in person like we do in India. So I'm so happy that you all came today, and it really warms my heart to see so many people. And now I'd like to hand it over to our SAC president, Sarah, who's here to end this. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rupa. Thank you. And thank you all the tellers. They were just, what a wonderful range of stories. Really, really delightful. And thank you, audience, for coming. It's been a lovely evening. I just wanted to share that we have ongoing projects. As you know, genre for next month is coming, and Ed has mentioned the children's concert. And the Bay Area Storytelling Festival is coming back. So all of you who are members
Win.
should have received your storyline, which gives you more information. It's April 16th, Saturday, April 16th at the Orinda Community Center. So we're hoping that everybody will come. We'll be in person. We are hoping. If that's not possible, we will still be live streaming with the tellers, and everything will be available also after the festival. So that's the latest with us. Thank you so much. And Rupa, thank you. Wonderful job. Andrew, thank you so much. Lovely evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew and Ed. You are the one who started this whole genre series, and